Hey, what's going on, guys and gals? This is going to be part 2 of the 40-bit floating system within the X32 and M32 digital mixers. Now, what I've done here, if you remember from the last video, we were talking about Headroom, and that's where we're going to continue. The Headroom that you're looking at here, this particular file is a white noise. And the only difference between white noise and pink noise is white noise, just with lower frequencies. Okay, so as you can see right here on these particular frequencies, and just so you know, guys, when we did the test tone before, that was a sine wave. And sine waves are just a calibrated audio file that carries one frequency, and that's why you see that nice curve up and down. Okay. So we're zoomed in here as far as we can get, and this point right up here, that is our headroom. We have none. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up a meter. We're going to look at a few things here. And the first thing we're going to look at is the RMS. What is the RMS level of this audio file? Okay, now as you can see, I've got my EQ turned off over here, and we're going to look at that just in a second. So even though right over here it's showing you the red warning, it's still saying at 0 dBs. Okay, it has not clipped. So the maximum on this file right here is a negative 4.7. Okay, that's on the RMS standard. Now let's look at what the peak meter says on this same audio file. So as you can see by right here, okay, it's staying at that 0.0 dBs. Now, this is exactly what it's measuring, guys. It's measuring the peak point of this audio. Now, the input meters for the X and M32 digital mixers are peak meters. They are not RMS. Okay? And that's very important to understand that, because if you don't understand that part of it, you will not know how to set your meters for your input. Okay? So why is that important? Well, in order for us to gain the true, or get as high as we can, we will never achieve the total 24-bit processing power of these digital mixers. So we need to get as close as we possibly can. Okay? And the closest you can get is to keep all of your input signals as close as you can to line level. Now, if you don't understand what that means, it's a real simple thing. You have mic levels and you have line levels. That's why you have preamps in mixers. They take a mic level signal, which is a much lower signal, and they increase it to a line level signal. Okay? So keep that in mind. We need to maintain that line level signal. Once it passes through that preamp, once it goes through the inserts, once it goes through everything, we need to keep an eye on that signal from start till it leaves that 40-bit floating environment. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm simply going to bring up an EQ. And if you look at band number 2 here, I've simply raised it 1.2 dBs right here. Okay, we're around the 177.3 hertz. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And we're going to leave the peak standard here. But when we talk about the headroom now, and you know, this deals with recording, but this also deals with your live mixing. Because if you start clipping a bunch of these channels, even though you may not think it sounds distorted to you, okay, it is. It's just that simple. Now, remember what we said, as long as it stays within that 40-bit environment, that floating environment, that's fine. But once you release it to your in-ear monitors, your stage monitors, your speaker systems, maybe you're running some outputs to a digital recorder, okay? Regardless of what it is, you're going to have clipped audio. Again, we can reduce this by pulling these faders down within the X and M32 mixers. But when we start pulling those faders down, we're going to start losing the integrity of the 24-bit processing. Because the only way you can get that is to keep those faders as close to unity as you can. And guys, I've never said you have to be dead on unity. Okay? You've got these brackets on these mixers for a reason. So if you've got a +5 and a -5, you've got 10 dBs there that you can manipulate to make that blend, to blend in that sound. And if you can't get that done within 10 dBs, in my honest opinion, you're using the wrong microphone, you're using the wrong mic placement, or your system is just simply not tuned the way it should be. Okay? So let's play this file again, and let's watch our meter now. As you can see, everything's going red over here. Everything. Okay? And that's why. Now, this is just on one channel. If you're the band or you're the praise and worship team that's, utilizing all 32 channels, and you're using your aux ins, and you're using, the front USB for whatever reason, and you start multiplying these inputs, you can see just a little bit on that one channel, everything's going to add up if you start getting distortion in. Okay? And that's the common saying, you need to drill this into the main frame of what we're discussing here. It's all the little steps that must be taken to achieve that sound that you're looking for. It's never just one great big thing. Okay? So now at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the doubling effect. Because we have we know what our headroom is now. Okay? And we can see just one simple adjustment there, just by adding one little thing on an EQ, is going to, create havoc with our audio. So now we're going to look at the doubling effect, because this is going to deal with headroom coming out of the mixer. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and load up some audio files here, and we're going to take a look at it, and we're going to be able to see that there is no one in particular channel clipping. But when we add them all together, we're going to see what the outcome is. All right? We'll be right back. Okay, guys. So here we are back in Reaper, and I've got 32 tracks loaded. And we're just going to pick a spot here, and I don't want you to have to suffer through all the way through this song, but I'm going to show you there's absolutely nothing in this audio that's clipping as far as the channels go. Every single channel that comes in here. Okay, you'll see, I think the highest point on it's going to be around the -6. And when it comes through, everything looks just totally fine. Now, this is from a recording aspect of it, as well as, playing live. Okay, because now we're going to get into what's called the doubling effect. Now, somebody has said, well, Dana, look, man, that only happens when you have two recordings that are exactly the same. And I don't want to get into that argument. We all have our own opinions on it. Me, I simply look and see what I'm getting, because the same recordings could be the same frequencies. And you got to bear that in mind, that when you have all these different instruments and vocals, you're going to have those same frequencies. They've just got to be there. Okay? So therefore, I do believe in the doubling effect, and we're going to look at it right here, because we're going to come up here now and we're going to render this file. And then we're going to look at it in the Orban meter. Okay? And I'm just going to say here and name it 1, and then hit render file, and watch what starts to happen here. Okay? As this comes through, you're going to see these clips coming through. Okay, this RMS level is not uncommon, or the LUFS, to be around that -12, -13. Some people like it really hot, that -9. Okay, but as you can see by these channels being combined, coming out of the master bus now, that's what this is. You'll see that it has a true peak of 8.2 dBs. Okay. Now, if you remember last time we were talking about when you double everything up on the inputs, you gain the 3 dBs from one input to 2. And then from 2 to 4, you'll gain another 3. And then from 4 to 8, and so on and so on. And it works out to about 15 dBs with the X32s because we have the 32 inputs. Okay. Even though we technically have the 40 inputs, in order to get that doubling effect again, you would have to go from 32 to 64, which I'm not going to whip out the calculator and do that little bit of math. Okay. But bear in mind, it is a true 15 plus dBs that you're going to add into this system. Okay. So I'm just going to hit back. I don't need to save that file. But again, when you watch all of this going through, you'll never see one of these channels clipped. Okay. And you don't see any inserts up here. The only thing that we have up here is the loudness meter. And that's why when you come through and you start doing this from the recording aspect now, from the mixing and mastering, for the recording, you're going to see these, that's why you start seeing this, coming through on these channels. When you see somebody laying their stuff out, and this is just an exaggeration, depending on what it is. And let's go ahead now and take a look at the Orban meter, and we'll see exactly what the outcome of this particular file is. And then we're going to jump over into X32 edit. Okay. And here we are, guys. This is the one that I just did before this. That's why if you notice up here, because somebody's going to say, well, that's a different file. True. It is the same file. I just named it differently. Okay. We're at that negative 12 LUFS. And we're 0.9 dBs over, which gives us 35,183 clips. This is that fuzz you hear. This is that little bit of a distortion. Okay, now keep in mind, this is not even 1 dB over full scale. Okay, so if you're running this, or this is coming through and we're releasing this out of that 40-bit floating system, okay, that 35,000 could very well jump up into 300,000. It could be 1.5 million. I see it all the time. When people send me their files, they leave me no headroom. I just tell them there's nothing I can do with it. Okay? If you go to any professional mixing engineer or mastering engineer, they're going to tell you they want that 6 dBs. They want 6 dBs of headroom. And this is why. So let's go ahead and jump over into X32 edit. And we're going to look at this same setup. And I'm simply going to be running it from Reaper through the X32 rack system with my S16. And we're going to start looking at ways that we can see where this headroom is going to affect us. Okay? Okay, guys. So here we are in X32 edit. Now, we went through the recording part of it. And now we're going to try and relate how this deals with the live mixing part of it for your live shows. Because there's not a whole lot of difference here. Okay? And I did say whole lot because it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. So for those of you that may not know what these red lines are up here, these boxes, those are for groups. Okay, down here on my mix bus, my left and right, these are actually going into a group instead of a bus. And we'll just come right up here to sends, and you can see it right here. So all I've done is taken this and I've dropped it down and made it a group instead of a bus. And there's advantages to that. We're not going to go into it in this video. Okay. I just wanted to show you that over here. You can see that I've got some processing going on here. And again, this is where it starts. Okay. If you recall, when we looked at the peak meters, okay, and then we looked at the RMS. When we look at the negative 18, they're looking at the peaks. These meters, these input meters on the X and M32 digital mixers are peak. Now, if we come over here to the compressor, you'll see we have an option here for the RMS or the peak. Okay, and I'm going to just flip over here to the base because it's more of a steady signal. And we'll be able to see that. As you can see here, it's coming over. We've got some compression going on. This is simply exaggerated so you can see what's happening here. Okay? If you look at the signal and we deactivate it, you'll see where it goes up slightly. Okay? So why is it going up? It should be the same coming through. Well, as we talked about before, it's because of the EQ. Look at the boost that we have going on this one channel. Okay, we've got 0.75s around the 58 hertz, and then we've got a plus 2.5 around the 195 hertz. So by adding these effects, just like we did over there when we were recording, you can see how these inserts, the channel strip processing, all of this will have an effect on the total output, okay, coming out of the mains. Also, coming out of your XLR outputs for your in-ear monitors, for your stage monitors, all of this is going to matter. So the easiest way that we can go down and we can look at this, okay, is to see our front of house, our all channel, our left and right, you know, what's coming out of that main left and right here. Okay, those are our meters. And as you can see, by going through and taking the time to set the proper EQs, the proper compression, that is the main goal, is to bring all of these up to the line level output that's going to help us achieve that line level signal. Whether it's going out to amplifiers, whether it's going out to powered speakers, same thing over here with your in-ear monitors. And if we bring up the meters here, you can see we are totally in the green all the way across. And it's showing us that right up here on our left and right. And we are at unity. So let's just start raising it up a little bit just to see when we start getting into some clipping. Okay, right up there, we're starting to get into some clipping now. Okay, we can come over here and we can compress that if we want to. Okay, as you can see right here, we can sit here and bring this down and we can compress that entire signal. So now we're not clipping again. And that's a wonderful thing. Now, I can't tell you how to set up your system. I don't know what you have going through it. And we can adjust a little bit more of the makeup gain. Okay, but we're going to get right back into that clipping area again. And you say, Dana, look, I'm doing all that. And it's not loud enough. Well, guys, you know, what's your delivery system? What's the wattage on it? Where are you playing? What's your venue? You know, do you need bigger speakers? Because this whole mixer, all of them, any of them, they're not a power head. Okay, they are simply there to take all your channels and sum them together and put them out of your outputs. So if we bring this back down to unity here, then we just take this off. As you can see, that is our headroom. That is another source of looking at your headroom. What do you have? Well, we're right up there. We're just about steady over there. I think it's around 7 dBs before we start clipping. So when you come over here and you look at your mix and you go, okay, I see all that. Look where my faders are. Okay, look at the numbers right here. Minus 1.2, plus 2.6 on these faders. And you're going to notice this all the way across. Okay? And that is how you achieve that highest 24-bit processing. Okay? Now, this is not my opinion. I'm learning this from the guy that did the front of house for Tom Petty. Okay, I'm up here, I'm watching these videos by Robert Scoville. Look at this recent blog post down here, you know. Check out my most recent video blog. You know, I'm pretty tired from the 2017 Tom Petty and the Heartbreak tours. Okay, this is the guy out there running the front of house for Tom Petty. If you don't know who Tom Petty is, Google him. Okay, he's an American icon. So as we look back into this and we're looking at what we've got going on here with our channel faders, we're looking at our inputs. Okay, we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. We're setting up our board. We're looking at these input levels. This is the absolute starting point. Okay, for your board, whether you're recording or whether you're running live, it just doesn't matter. And I want to make one more point now about the meters we were talking about. Okay? These are the peak meters. When I talk about your percussions, about being able to sit there and run them up, -10, -15, we've already looked at the RMS meter compared to the peak meter in Reaper. Okay? We can see that we're not going to be clipping whatsoever. We've got about 4 dBs that we can play with. And that's why, if you say, man, my drums are sounding weak, my kick sounds like it's got no thump to it, my snare sounds dead, go ahead and raise those up past the -18 dB input, full scale. Okay? See what it sounds like. And that's the most important thing, guys. These videos are not going to teach you how to run your board. It's simply making suggestions how you may get a better sound. Okay? Now we're going to do one more thing. I'm going to go into Reaper and I'm going to raise everything by probably about 6-7 dBs, and then we're going to see what it looks like now coming out of the front of house. Okay, guys, so here we are. Okay, everything's raised up. It doesn't matter where I go. Our input levels, you'll see that they're all coming up the way that they should be. You'll see over here on the master already just the meters. I can tell you right now without even looking at them. They are so close to clipping out right there. Now on the auxiliary sends, I use this as an example, coming through to where you might be coming out to something like a Zoom H6, a digital recorder. You may be feeding a cry room. There's all kinds of things you can do with his auxiliary outputs. Maybe you're running in-ear monitors. Okay? So in order to get all of this down, I've got to sit there and pull these mains down to get that clipping out of it. Okay? So there we've got a little bit of headroom left. But as you can see now on my bus, it's still clipping. Now because the 5 and 6, the auxiliary sends, are mimicking the front of house, then that's why that came down. So let's jump over to the bus here on 9 and 10 on the group. It is a group. If I pull these down a little bit, it's going to show that it's still clipping coming in here. Okay, but if we look at the meters now, we can sit there and see where this does pull it out. Okay, but I don't run mine on this type. I run mine pre-fader. I don't run them post-fader. Okay, that's not for this particular video. That's a very debated subject. You run them however you see fit. Because if I come over here to the routing, and I come down and I make these pre-fader plus mute. Somebody asked me the other day, how come you always say pre-fader plus mute? Well, if I'm running your board and I mute you and you don't get no sound coming out, I guarantee you I'm going to be the first person you're looking at. And it's because I want to get your attention. Okay? So let's go back up to the meters. As you can see, we're still clipping. I can pull it all the way down. It doesn't matter. It's still clipping. Clipping equals distortion, even though it's in here. Okay, and it is being clipped. As we can see, because of the 40-bit floating system, we can reduce this and we can take the clips out of that audio. Okay, I hope it hasn't been too confusing for you. Once you get your head wrapped around a few things, that's why I'm trying to start these videos from the very beginning and working our way up. Okay, because the 24-bit processing is going to come from Unity. That's it. Some people believe in it. Some people call it a myth. Myself, like I said, this guy's running front of house for Tom Petty, and he's using digital mixers that are 4 and 5 times the money of our X32s and our M32s. We have the same features that he does. So as we go through and look at this, how do we get the best sound we can get out of ours that they're getting out of theirs? And that is the purpose of these videos. All right? Take care. God bless. And we are out of here.